Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
Welcome back to Mystery and Murder, where we explore headline-making cases and the people at the heart of them. In our last episode, we began unraveling the mysterious case of Ellen Greenberg, who was found dead on her kitchen floor one snowy night. Her body was riddled with stab wounds. Her fiancé, the one who discovered her, insisted it was suicide. But the evidence painted a far more complex picture. This was anything but an open and shut case. Let's dive in and follow the investigation from the beginning. Now, when we last left off, first responders and police had come to Ellen and her fiancé Sam's apartment after Sam's chaotic 911 call, during which he revealed that a knife had been plunged into Ellen's chest. Now, this was a woman who seemed to have everything to live for, and her death shocked and saddened many. The two people most devastated, of course, were her parents, Sandy and Josh Greenberg, who I featured on my show recently. They were just aghast when they found out their beloved daughter, their only child, was dead. Now, shockingly, the scene was released by investigators without even calling the crime scene unit. And that's where things started to unravel. From the very beginning, investigators treated Ellen's death as a suicide, largely because they believed she had been alone at the time. Sam claimed the apartment door was latched from the inside, forcing him to break it down before discovering her body. But was it really that simple? Here's what police reported at the crime scene. Crime scene observations. The bar lock on the front door was broken, consistent with forced entry. Now, when I'm talking about a bar, we're talking about what you would see in a lot of motel rooms, where you have a little bar on the door and then there's a latch that you put up and slide into it. The apartment was clean with no signs of a struggle. Valuables remained untouched: money, keys, laptops. No suicide note was found. The rear patio, 6th floor, had been undisturbed, and it had snow outside, and there weren't any footprints there, ruling out someone escaping that direction. And of course, it was on the 6th floor. The apartment temperature was 69 degrees Fahrenheit, with outside conditions snowy and cold. The decedent is a teacher. There is no note found or anything indicative of suicide on the computers or in the rest of the apartment. The only way to exit the apartment with the front doorway locked is through a rear slider leading to a patio. And the patio is 6 stories high, and there is snow present with no tracks or footprints, completely undisturbed snow. The incident occurred during a winter snowstorm. So even though their findings read that there was no note found, nor anything to indicate a suicide, police ruled that Ellen took her life because she was the only one inside the apartment. That is, until Sam allegedly burst back in and found her body. Okay, let's just take pause here and think about this. According to Sam, he had to break into the apartment where he found her body. And there was no evidence that anyone had been there and left. That's what that all boils down to. There were two ways in and out of the apartment. One was through the front door that he says was locked and he had to break down to get in. The other was through a sliding door that was to a patio 6 floors up. And there was snow outside that door that had not been disturbed. There were no footprints there. There was no indication that anybody had gone out on that patio, and I don't know where they would have gone if they did, because they're 6 floors high. Now, meanwhile, Ellen's parents began to make funeral preparations. They couldn't make sense of how that seemed like a normal day. Sandy had spoken with her daughter that very morning that had ended in such tragedy. And in the early morning hours of January 27th, the day after Ellen's death, her body was transported to the morgue for an autopsy. Now, curiously, at 7 a.m. that morning, before the medical examiner had even had a chance to view Ellen's body, there was already a flurry of activity back at the couple's apartment. Up next, missing electronics, a same-day cleanup, and still no suspects. That's a lot to unpack. What comes next might just flip the whole story on its head. Despite some post-election optimism, Wall Street is already bracing for a rough rest of 2025. When Warren Buffett starts dumping blue-chip stocks and stacking up cash, you've got to ask yourself, what does he see coming? I trust Preserve Gold to safeguard my accounts, and I urge you to do the same. They're the only precious metals company I recommend. When uncertainty is this high, smart people look for stability. That's why physical gold and silver might just be what your finances need. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue through 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil, that's DRPHIL, to 50505 today. The next time you gather with family, enjoy Balance of Nature supplements as an addition to your favorite dishes. Our veggie supplement, made from 15 ingredients like garlic, onion, and cayenne pepper, can easily be opened and added to your favorite dishes like homemade soups or dips. Not to mention our fruits supplement, which is made from 16 ingredients like banana, strawberries, and mango, making it a great addition to your homemade smoothies. Start your journey with Balance of Nature. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com to get a free fiber and spice supplement, plus 35% off your first preferred set as a new preferred customer, with free shipping and our money-back guarantee. Go to balanceofnature.com or call 1-800-246-8751 and get this special offer by using discount code Dr. Phil. That's DRPHIL. Now, curiously, at 7 a.m. that morning, before the medical examiner had even had a chance to view Ellen's body, there was already a flurry of activity back at the couple's apartment. Remember Sam's uncle, the one he was on the phone with when he discovered Ellen's slumped-over body in the kitchen? That uncle, James Schwartzman, along with his son, Camion, wasted no time making a call to the apartment complex manager requesting access to the unit. Now, before granting entry, the manager reached out to the police to confirm that Sam and Ellen's apartment was still an active crime scene. Shockingly, the police said it wasn't. In fact, they even referred the manager of the complex to a crime scene cleanup crew. Now, James and Camion claimed they only needed access to grab one of Sam's suits, supposedly for Ellen's funeral. But when they stepped inside that day, they took far more than just a suit. They walked out with Ellen's purse, her cell phone, and her laptop. And as if that wasn't suspicious enough, they arranged for a crime scene cleanup crew to come in that very same day. Okay, now look, this was a long time ago. The police have had this for a long time. They have not named anyone as a person of interest. They haven't named anyone as a suspect. They have been treating this as a suicide despite the fact that it certainly doesn't fit the profile of a suicide, in my opinion. I don't know who would have been the perpetrator. Sam's uncle and cousin were part of the story almost in the very beginning. Imagine your family member's fiancé has just allegedly committed suicide, and your priority is to get the place cleaned up and sanitized. The very next day, when Ellen's body is barely cold, and their taking of Ellen's personal effects just seems odd to me. Now, I don't know these people. I don't know what their priorities are. If they should have been given to anyone, it seems like they should have been given to Ellen's parents. Why would Sam's uncle and cousin come and take her purse, cell phone, laptop? What was going on here? Now, one theory is that there's some kind of cover-up going on. But the police have known this for all this time. Why would they not say that this is suspicious? What do they know that we don't know? So think about it this way. We're barely into day 2 of the case, and already a potential crime scene has been compromised. And I can tell you that when you have a crime scene, it takes time, and you have to work it in grids. First off, you've got the door. You have to decide how that door got opened. Was it kicked open? Was somebody already inside and yanked it open and created the breaking of the frame around the door? You have to do stress tests. You have to figure out how that all happened. Then you have to look at all sorts of physical evidence around there. Blood splatter. Forensics would look at telephones. You would look at laptops. You would look at all the physical evidence around her body. You would look at footprints in carpet. You would look at if it had been vacuumed or something after the fact. You would get the vacuum. You would look inside the bag. All kinds of things that would take a forensics team time to gather that evidence. You would take microscopic samples of everything around. You would do all sorts of forensic testing. But within a day, they have a crew coming in and destroying all this evidence. One reason that you would perhaps do that is you've decided it's not a crime scene, that it's a scene of a suicide. But now enters the medical examiner, Dr. Marlon Osborne. When he examined Ellen's body, here's what he found. He said there were multiple stab wounds. The decedent had numerous stab wounds to the chest, abdomen, and back of the neck. Critical injuries. The stab wounds affected vital areas, including the aortic arch, left lung, and cervical spine, C-spine. This indicates severe trauma to essential organs and structures. Now, blade details. A 12.5 centimeter, which is a 4.9-inch blade, was embedded in the wound to the chest with a depth of 10 centimeters, 3.94 inches. This suggests that the weapon used was quite substantial and the wounds were deep. Now think about this, almost 4 inches into the body cavity. The presence of multiple bruises at different stages of resolution, suggesting a pattern of physical altercations or abuse occurring over time. As you know, everybody's had bruises, and there's different coloration at different times as a bruise heals. So if you have different bruises with different coloration, you can say, well, this one's older than this one because this one's yellow, this one's purple, this one's blue. So you can age them based on the stage at which they're resolving. So to simplify this, she had 10 stab wounds to her neck and the back of her head, and 10 to her stomach, abdomen, and chest with a 10-inch knife still plunged into her heart. It seems to defy logic that any person could repeatedly stab themselves that many times in an act of suicide. It would be very unusual, very uncommon. Now, the combination of blood loss, pain, and the nature of the wounds just really seems implausible. Deep wounds like that, and to the back of the neck no less, and one of them damaging the cervical spine. Look, I'm no pathologist, and I'm no physician, but I have dealt with and studied an awful lot of suicides. And I've talked to the world's top pathologists, and this blatantly appears to be an attack. Not to mention, if one did want to commit suicide, this is a very violent, painful, bloody act for Ellen to have allegedly committed. Why would she end her own life in this gruesome manner, knowing her fiancé was downstairs at the gym? We also need to address the report of bruising on Ellen's body. These bruises that were not all fresh, was she allegedly being secretly abused? And if so, by who? Was this in her relationship with Sam? Did she have some other relationship with someone? Was there someone else? Was this a triangle? Was there somebody that was involved in this that we don't know about? So what's the official word? Are they still leaning towards suicide despite some eyebrow-raising details and a whole lot of unanswered questions? We're diving into the evidence that's making some people say, hold on, that doesn't add up. We are in the midst of a brutal allergy season. According to experts, it is longer and more severe than in years past. For many of us, that means sleepless nights, tossing, turning, and sneezing, and the dreaded postnasal drip. That's not even half of it. But there is a solution. Sambrosa night syrups. It's effective. Try it and get your best night's sleep. If you watched my town hall with RFK Jr., then you know Sambrosa is sponsoring Merit TV's Make America Healthy Again campaign. That's because Sambrosa contains no dyes, synthetic colors, or artificial flavors, and no high fructose corn syrup. Just a base of nutrient-rich honey and 7 organic herbs and a small dose of antihistamine that will have you sleeping like a baby. Go to Sambrosa.com and use code MERIT for 25% off your first order. Wake up rested and invigorated. Again, go to Sambrosa.com and use code MERIT for 25% off your first order. Upon examining Ellen's body, Dr. Osborne made a critical determination. Based on his medical findings, he initially ruled her death a homicide. This ruling set off a full-scale investigation. Well, full-scale after the crime scene had been destroyed, prompting authorities to obtain a search warrant for Ellen and Sam's apartment. Among the items seized were blood samples, a collection of knives, a bloody hand towel, latent fingerprints, assorted clothing, and other potential pieces of evidence. But you have to understand, a lot had already happened at this point. Ellen's parents received the devastating news that their daughter's case had officially been classified as a murder. Just as her father Josh was about to deliver her eulogy. In that heartbreaking moment, amidst his grief, he actually felt a sense of relief, believing that justice would now be served and that Ellen's spirit was there with them, guiding the way. Now, can you imagine that you're in so much pain that getting the news that your daughter had been murdered was actually a relief? But if it's on the heels of finding out that she hadn't died by suicide, at least it lets you know that she wasn't so tormented, she wasn't so much in pain that she took her own life. Unfortunately, justice was nowhere to be found. Despite Dr. Osborne's initial ruling of homicide and law enforcement's launching an investigation, it didn't take long for the narrative to shift yet again. Just days later, a police spokesman announced the department was still leaning towards suicide as Ellen's cause of death, assuring the public there was no need to fear a maniac on the loose. Then 2 months later, in March 2011, something even more troubling happened. The Philadelphia Police Department held a closed-door meeting with Dr. Osborne and his supervisor. What was discussed remains unclear, but what happened afterward was undeniable. Dr. Osborne abruptly changed Ellen's manner of death from homicide to suicide. So, let me be sure I haven't lost you here. This was originally, for some reason that I don't understand, thought to be a suicide, because when you walk in on this and find that somebody's been stabbed in the back and neck 10 times, in addition to multiple wounds in the chest and stomach, you say, okay, this looks like a suicide. I didn't understand how you would come to that conclusion. That's not a common sense conclusion. I think you could stop any car on the highway, bring them in, have them look over this crime scene and say, what do you think? I think the most casual observer would say, well, this woman's been attacked and killed. But they decide it's a suicide. So they take it to the expert, they take it to the pathologist, and they evaluate her and say, no, this is a murder. But then they meet with the doctor behind closed doors and the doctor supervisor and abruptly change this back to suicide. So the scientific examination determined murder, but then after a meeting, it's back to suicide again. Dr. Osborne's explanation at the time, he said, she's the only one found in the apartment with nothing disturbed, nothing out of place, no other way of getting in there. It doesn't lend to the fact that someone else was there to do it. So that was discounted. Now, naturally, Josh and Sandy were incredulous at this ruling. How could her daughter have stabbed herself not once, but 20 times? To add insult to injury, they were not even informed by the Philadelphia Police Department or the medical office of this major change in ruling. They found it out in the press. They had to hear this, read this, learn this with everybody else. They were determined to exonerate their daughter and willing to go to the ends of the earth to do it. But first, let's examine the other main factor that led investigators to believe Ellen may have taken her own life: her mental state. It's clear that Ellen was struggling in the months leading up to her death. I mentioned that in the last episode. I said, look, she's young, she's feeling stress, she's got a wedding coming on, maybe she's overwhelmed by all the details of that, all the pressure of having to deal with getting that put together and set up. She had been experiencing significant anxiety and stress, and those closest to her couldn't help but notice the change. Her parents and friends described her as anxious and on edge, far from her usual lighthearted self. Something was weighing on her. Concerned, her parents urged her to seek professional help. She eventually met with a psychiatrist who diagnosed her with anxiety and initially prescribed Zoloft and Xanax. When those medications didn't seem effective, the psychiatrist later prescribed Ambien and Klonopin in an attempt to manage her symptoms. So, what was ailing Ellen? We have to stop and look at the side effects of some of these medications. Because if you go to the physician's reference and you look at side effects, go to WebMD, go to the manufacturers for these medications, the side effects do include mood shifts. Some of the secondary side effects, the less often noted side effects, will tell you that these mood swings can get severe and that sometimes there may even be suicidal ideation. So, did she have some reaction to these medications that created a real shift from her normal cognitive functioning, emotional functioning? I mean, that has to be considered. That's a possibility. The manufacturers of these medications acknowledge that. It's written down. Look it up. If that were true, just for argument's sake, let's say that's true. Let's say she had a really bad reaction to the medication and wanted to take her own life. I still don't buy it. She wouldn't do it in this way. And this was an educated, intelligent woman, and she was a teacher. She learned things. She taught things. She would be one that would investigate these side effects and say, wow, tick, 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 boom. Look at this. I need to call my doctor. Because when these side effects come on, they don't just knock you over one day. You start to notice that your thinking has changed. Your thinking is different. It doesn't just, you take one pill and feel determined to kill yourself. That's not how it works. It starts to build up and your thinking starts to shift. It still doesn't explain this, but I'm being objective, I'm being honest. These are side effects of these medications. Even if that's true, I think she had the intellect to think her way through that and reach back out to her doctor. And even if she didn't do that, there is no indication that she would choose this kind of way to take her own life. Very unusual. But apparently she was stressed and overwhelmed with her teaching job. She loved children, but she worked at a low-income school in Philadelphia, and the work was demanding. Some of her students were failing, and she did not relish giving low grades. It was hard for her to do that to these children that she cared so much about. She didn't have the parental support that she wished she had. I'm sure I've worked with families and teachers in these settings, and it's particularly difficult. Now, according to her close friend Allison, there was a shift in Ellen's personality due to her relationship with Sam. This once confident go-getter now seemed to defer to him when it came to decisions. She had lost weight, changed her style in an effort to impress his family. Allison even said that at a party once, she watched how Ellen interacted with Sam, and it was like she was following him around like a puppy. Something about Ellen's confidence had changed. Out of the blue, she was less willing to take photos. Now, okay, people change when they become part of a couple. When they stop being an individual and become half of a couple, changes do occur. You make accommodations. You fold yourself into a relationship. So the people in Ellen's life are noticing a change in her for whatever reason. They're noticing something isn't right with her. And it's not just when it comes to her job, but her relationship as well. As her longtime friend Erica stated, I think she was hiding stuff that was going on in her relationship. Now, Ellen never explicitly voiced any concerns about Sam. She never indicated that she was afraid of him and that their relationship was unhealthy. However, in subtle ways, she may have been signaling a desire to leave. Now, this is speculation from friends, untrained friends. She once asked her cousin if she could move in and stay in her spare bedroom. She told her father she wanted to quit her job and move home. A surprising request, especially in the middle of the school year. It was this sudden shift that prompted her parents to encourage her to seek professional help. They were worried about her well-being. But did they fear for Ellen's life? No, at the time, that didn't even hit the radar screen. They didn't think she was in danger in the relationship. They didn't think she was a danger to herself. Now, we have actually gotten access to some of the therapist's notes from Ellen's sessions, particularly from her appointments in January, just weeks before her death. On January 12, 2011, the therapist's notes say, quote, "Want things in control. My whole life, hard worker. Anxious, not sleeping. Job sucks." And notes from January 17th, we're getting really close now. The note says she wants to quit, but mom and fiancé don't want her to. Next note, same day. She can get out of contract with 2 weeks' notice. Next note, when she starts to work on something, she starts thinking about everything else. Then there's a hyphen and the 2 words, not suicidal. January 19th, way better. Feels 75% better. Agrees she should just get through till June. Next note, she tends to walk around compulsively neatening up. So what can we glean from these session notes? Most importantly, that this therapist made it a point to note that Ellen was not suicidal. However, Ellen was certainly displaying symptoms that aligned with her anxiety diagnosis. She couldn't sleep. She felt out of control. She felt like she had bitten off more than she could chew at work. She had racing thoughts. It seems like she was a high achiever and perhaps her own harsh critic. Anxiety disorders are the most common mental disorder globally. And just so you know, here are some of the common symptoms associated with anxiety disorders. Anxiety symptoms include both mental and physical changes. On the mental side, you have feelings of nervousness or agitation. You feel a sense of tension or restlessness, a sense of impending danger sometimes, irritability or frustration, and you oftentimes have difficulty concentrating because you're distracted by the nervousness. Your internal dialogue, your thoughts are divided between being vigilant to your anxiety and whatever it is you're saying to yourself that's got you upset and the task at hand. Now, on the physical side, you can have rapid heartbeat, shortness of breath. People with anxiety say, I haven't had a deep breath in forever. Sometimes there'll be excessive sweating. You'll notice a tremble, muscle tension. Sometimes there'll be nausea or dizziness. Behaviorally, they tend to avoid anxiety-inducing situations if they've tied it to something that creates a fight or flight response in them where they feel a sense of threat, real or perceived. They tend to avoid those situations, and they oftentimes have difficulty making decisions because their confidence is eroded. It's like, I don't know. What if I do the wrong thing? What if I do this and it doesn't work? And so they become ambivalent. They often have trouble falling asleep, and they have trouble staying asleep. They'll sometimes grind their teeth or clench their jaws. And as I said, the nausea can really kick in, and they'll have digestive problems. Sometimes they'll have dry mouth, cold, sweaty hands, numbness or tingling in the hands and feet, and they'll report headaches or backaches. So this is not just, hey, I was a little nervous this morning. It can really affect you. And one of the most important things is if your sleep patterns are disturbed, that can really affect your coping energy. It can affect your moods, and it can certainly affect your concentration and your ability to do your job. But according to Ellen's psychiatrist, her mood was improving. There are two things here that we have to consider. Could Ellen have been holding things back during their sessions? Well, she certainly could, but a trained therapist, you would think they would recognize this. The other possibility is, I hate to say this, but I'm considering every possibility. You have something that is often referred to as short-term phenomenon. When people have made a decision to take their own life, you often see an inexplicable upturn in their mood and emotion. Now, why is that? Because they've found a solution. It's like, hey, I've made up my mind. I only have to put up with this for a short period of time. And so they feel better. It's like, hey, I'm out. I found a way out. I found a solution. I'll escape this in a short period of time. And so there's a lifting of mood. They don't feel helpless and hopeless anymore because they know they have an escape route. Now, is that what happened here? I'm not saying that. I'm just putting everything on the table for you to be completely objective here. When later questioned by investigators, the psychiatrist stated that Ellen spoke only positively about Sam and denied ever having any verbal or physical altercations with him. However, Ellen reportedly confided in a friend that she was anxious about what her doctor might disclose, despite being reassured that unless there was a threat or harm to herself or others, confidentiality laws under HIPAA would prevent the psychiatrist from sharing anything without her consent. What's more, on January 22nd, Ellen met up with a fellow friend who was also in the midst of planning her wedding, with Ellen serving as a bridesmaid. This friend says Ellen appeared disheveled. Her usually done hair was unkempt, her eyes filled with tears at one point in the bridal salon. Asked what was wrong, Ellen responded, nothing, I'm fine. It's your day. I'm going to get it together. 4 days later, Ellen would be dead. If you're as outraged as I am by how quickly this case was dismissed, you won't want to miss the next episode. We'll follow Ellen's parents on their brave and relentless journey for answers. What have their privately hired experts and privately hired investigators uncovered when examining the case with fresh eyes? Just let me summarize for you where we are, because I want you to know where these investigators and experts start. There's evidence here that argues strongly against suicide, because stabbing yourself 20 times, very unusual. Stabbing yourself in the back is very difficult to do, particularly if you go far enough in that you damage the cervical spinal cord. It doesn't ring true. It just doesn't make sense to me. When you look at the totality of the evidence, she clearly wasn't herself. Her friends are saying she was upset. Her parents report that she had come to them and said, "Hey, can I move home?" They were concerned enough that they really encouraged her to get professional help. She was on medications that have side effects. We have Sam's family members removing what I think are very unusual information from the apartment. I don't know why they would do that. There are so many contradictions here. There was a shift from the medical examiner. Initially, this was ruled suicide. Then the examiner looks at her and says, "Nah, this is a homicide." Then there's a meeting, and they say, "Nope, suicide." So there are inconsistencies in this case. And the parents have every right to be concerned that this hasn't been handled well. They have every right to want to have some clarity in this situation. Their souls are not at rest here. Mine would not be if I were them. Did someone murder their daughter? And if so, who was it? You can look at this and say, well, Sam found her. Sam was in a relationship with her, but was there somebody else involved? Was she in some kind of other relationship? And if so, how did they get in and out of that apartment? What all was going on? If you're going to declare somebody a person of interest or somebody a suspect, you need evidence. You need proof. And the police feel like we don't have it yet. So where does the investigation stand today? Well, stay tuned, because you're going to find out in the next episode some amazing revelations have come to the forefront in this case. And as I said, this is active and ongoing. And when I say active, things are happening. So stay tuned. I can't wait to tell you the rest of this story. You've been listening to Mystery and Murder, and I'm Dr. Phil.
Hey, Dr. Phil here. My network, Merit TV, has it all.
Now, let me blow your mind.
Merit TV's got the news that matters.
The selection of a new pope.
Entertainment you crave.
Busted.
Everybody in a good mood today?
And live events.
Surprise. What am I, chopped liver?
With serious punch.
Big shot!
Go to merittv.com and download the Merit TV app today.